Alrighty, well, as you can see, Rocky is sleeping. He is. I'm going to tell you a kind of a funny story. When I was young and I first left home, I boarded at a school teacher's house, and his wife did some volunteering for the Catholic Church. And she used to go to the rectory, which where the priest lived. I think maybe once a week or twice a week. I can't remember now exactly. But, she would do some office work there, help out with printing the church bulletin and all that stuff, anyway. And I guess one time she was there, and what they used to use to print the church bulletin was a mimeograph machine, or we used to call them a Gestetner machine. And the way a Gestetner machine worked, you typed up whatever you wanted to type up on a kind of a carbon type of thing. It was like a purple sheet of paper. And then you put that sheet on a drum in the machine, and there was like a bath of, it was like a special kind of alcohol and ether and whatnot. And what you did is, as the drum, you turned on the machine, as the drum rotated with the master copy on it, the pages were fed through this mixture of alcohol and ether and whatnot, and awful stinky stuff. You could get high off it, really. It was pretty strong stuff. And the papers would smell of it, too, after you printed them. They'd pass through there, and the master copy on the drum would make the printing on the paper. I'm kind of simplifying it, really, and I'm not even 100% sure how it worked, but that was the basic way it worked, anyway, just a very simple explanation of it. Now, there was a weight that had to be put down. When the papers were coming out, there was a special kind of a thing that would catch them, and there had to be a weight put down in order that the papers didn't just fly all over the room. Well, I guess one day she was printing up the church bulletins. She started up the machine and went out of the room, and she forgot. You should never walk away from one of those machines either. That's another thing, because they can screw up in a multitude of ways. You should always be standing there watching it. But she had left the room momentarily after she started the machine. And when she came back in, the machine was flinging the church bulletins that it was printing up all over the room. Must have been like an episode of I Love Lucy, like with the chocolate factory or whatever, and she always seemed to get into situations with machinery where a machine would go out of control on her, or whatever. Turns out she forgot to set the weight on the machine before she went out of the room. And so the papers were just going through the holder and flying across the room, basically, is what was happening. But, like I say, in those days, everything was mechanical. But I guess the room was there were church bulletins just everywhere in there, It was an awful mess. But anyway, that's the story. Another funny thing I remember, I have a friend who had a chip wagon for a while. This is kind of a funny story. This is another story of a machine kind of screwing up. And she had this chip wagon, and it had an automatic. The chip wagon was parked by an old factory, and she had access to the factory. There was a big loading door she could open, and she kept equipment in there and stuff. And one day I happened to be driving past her chip wagon early in the morning when she was getting ready to open, and she had an automatic potato washing and peeling machine. It looked like a great big stainless steel tub, and there was a lid went down on top of it that had to be latched, and it would be full of water. And basically you put the potatoes in there, and it washed them, and it also, somehow it peeled them. I don't know exactly how it worked, but anyway, I was driving past there early one morning when she was getting ready to open, and of course she was getting her potatoes ready to make the French fries. And I happened to turn my head and look in that direction, and inside the loading bay where this machine was, I saw potatoes being flung. There was water flying up out of the machine, and there were potatoes flying through the air, just being flung in every direction. So I pulled into the yard, and I went to the chip truck, and I told her, I said, your potato machine in there has gone haywire. She kind of said, what? What do you mean? And I said, well, it's flinging water and potatoes all over in there. So she went and looked, and sure enough, anyway, potatoes were flying everywhere. But anyway, just a couple of stories I recall of machines that went haywire. I guess the lid had come unlatched or something, and when that happened, the lid came off, and then everything was just flinging everywhere. But kind of comical when things like that happen, although if it happens to you, it isn't comical in the moment. It's the sort of thing you'll laugh about later, but at the time you don't think it's very funny, when you're confronted with that mess. Anyway, that's a couple of funny stories about machinery going haywire. As you can see, there's Rocky. He's having a sleep. He's all curled up in his window there with his paw in front of his face, having a sleep. Quite the cat. Alrighty, we'll talk to you later. Bye for now.